All life has its beginning and its end. From the moment of birth, everything that shrieks and struggles upon the material plane crawls towards a singular finale, that fatal climax that grants passage to the unimaginable infinites of the afterlife. As the spirits of the deceased flow from the confusion of mortality to their ultimate fates, they are each judged by the gods of death, who assure that all those who die reach their prescribed afterlife. Yet, with all the worlds of the material plane, the countless faces and exceptions of mortality, and all those who would turn fate and finality to their own devices, death as a system and an institution requires more agents than a single deity or pantheon to uphold. These agents are the Psychopomps, denizens of purgatory, the dispassionate stewards, chroniclers, and guides of all those who die. Psychopomps preside over the flow of life. Their primary concern is the focus upon souls in the vulnerable transition between death and their final destination upon the plains. Psychopomps carry out their duties with the dispassion of veterans and cynics. In terms of service measuring in ages, Psychopomps meet countless souls from innumerable worlds, and soon nearly every story, fate, plea, and exception becomes all too familiar. They care little for the histories or personalities of souls that pass them by, unconcerned only for the efficient and unvaried process of each spirit to its final, unremarkable eternity. Damnation and paradise are the same to them, as are heroes and villains, and no Psychopomp cares for one jot of great deeds left undone, or others' fates hanging in the balance, or bribes worth even a world's ransom. But while drudgery is the lot for many Psychopomps, interrupted only by the diversions they sometimes create for themselves, their system is not without flaws. There are creatures who would seek to deny the natural order of death, fiends that prey upon souls, spirits lost in their migration, and undead abominations. To counter such abnormalities and preserve the flow of souls as the multiverse requires, numerous specialized Psychopomps exist to protect the dead and counter any who would seek to prevent the state of death to their own ends. Noteworthy among Psychopomps are their masks. Many who have dealings in the living wear some manner of grim face covering or funerary mask. While these masks are not part of the Psychopomp's body and grant no special abilities, the legend of numerous cultures suggests that for a living creature to see a Psychopomp's unmasked countenance invites a premature death. Those Psychopomps who deal predominantly with the dead typically eschew such masks of station, except as a formality. As Psychopomps help convey souls to all of the outer planes and thus provide petitioners equally to each of those realms, they enjoy a special status among many planar races as respected neutrals. As such, most other planar races grant them a wide berth, with even archons and demons going out of their way to avoid interfering with death's emissaries. Soul-hungry daemons and reality-violating Quillepth are among those races that actively oppose Psychopomps. Consequently, the deadlier classes of Psychopomps watch out for and hunt the disruptive members of these races, seeking to expunge all the paths between the planes of any that would impede the certain cycle of death. The death gods create the weakest Psychopomps out of mortal souls, usually those who served purgatory in life or worship deities of judgment. The gods may transform Psychopomps which perform exemplary services into greater members of their kind, though rarely an exceptional hero or champion of purgatory may become a superior Psychopomp when he or she dies. There is little competitiveness or jealousy among the ranks of these creatures, as their primary motivation is the fulfillment of their eternal duties, and there is little point in coveting another's rewards and responsibilities. The following are the most common types of Psychopomps. Other varieties exist, tasked with more obscure duties for the gods of death, or responsible for alien worlds where native creatures have radically different life cycles and outlooks compared to that of humans. Nasaw. This strange black bird wears a leather long-nosed mask like a plague doctor. Nasaws eagerly fill the roles of clerks, scribes, and messengers in Purgatory's bureaucracy. They record the circumstances of each mortal's death, any judgments for and against its soul, and its final destination among the outer planes. A Nasaw looks like a songbird, usually a crow, sparrow, or whippoorwill, though it wears a funerary mask that accentuates its beak. Many Nasaws craft decorative artificial tails from grave goods and other decorations that trail behind them when they fly. A Nasaw typically measures about 1 foot in length, but is deceptively heavy, weighing between 10 and 15 pounds. It can also use drawing and writing tools like any other creature. Nasaw serve within libraries and scriptoriums of purgatory, tirelessly scribbling away without rest. Being social creatures, they frequently chatter or sing with one another. A Nasaw considers eating a rare treat, and sometimes shares information it knows if given a suitable tasty bribe. A Nasaw's primary duties are to record happenings within purgatory, conduct souls to and from their appointed destinations, and carry messages from purgatory to agents in other planes. Most outsiders respect the courier's neutrality and allow them safe passage. Many also serve as assistants to more powerful psychopomps, or even to mortals with particularly morbid concerns or important fates. Nasaws take pride in knowing that their trivial task aids in keeping one of the multiverse's most important systems functioning with general reliability. A Nasaw that becomes a familiar may be able to impart certain bonuses to the casting of spells within the death domain. However, should its master create undead or become an undead themselves, it would immediately leave their service. Vanth. This humanoid skeleton has black raven wings, a long tail, and a polished vulture-like mask where its face should be. Stern, silent, and cloaked in ragged black wings, Vanth Psychopomps serve as stoic guardians of purgatory and watchers along the routes of the dead. A Vanth looks like a black skeleton with raven-like wings and a mask resembling a vulture's skull. Also known as Reapers, Angels of Death, or Azramane, Vanths protect the departed from those wishing to eat or steal their mortal souls, recapture the escaped souls trying to flee their assigned fates, and are death's foot soldiers against whatever would disrupt the natural cycle of mortality. They may also guard the dead and death's secrets, such as forgotten cemeteries and unattended mausoleums, along with sacred groves. A Vanth weighs 400 pounds and stands 8 feet tall, though its slumped posture may make it look almost like an adult humanoid. Vanths are ancient creatures, perhaps predating the current gods of death, and are rumoured to be ascended souls of a distant world of death-worshipping soldiers. They rarely speak or show any emotion, and their hollow voices carry unnaturally far. A Vanth Scythe is its badge of its station, reflecting its role as a harvester of souls. It features symbols in a language that was already lost when the death gods claimed purgatory. Most outsiders scorn Vanths. As psychopomps, they have no concern for law, rightfulness, or personal gain. Only duty. Vanths view any other outsider visiting purgatory as a potential threat, and stalk angels and demons alike. The Katrina. With lengthy curling hair, a dancer's dress, and a bouquet of flowers, this woman remains beautiful, despite having no flesh. Katrinas welcome the dead to the afterlife, doing what they can to lessen the shock and terror experienced by mortals who haven't accepted their own deaths or who still grieve for themselves. Eschewing the funeral themes and colours preferred by most other psychopomps, Katrinas dress in festive shades, surrounding themselves with light and colour to dispel a measure of death's gloom. However, they don't disguise their skeletal bodies, for despite any gilding they may put on at the moment, they don't seek to disguise the finality of death. A Katrina's motivation for easing the transition from life to death has more to do with making the soul's progression calm than actual compassion for the soul. After all, screaming in outrage disrupts the process of the dead. Katrinas rarely ever visit the material plane, but when they do, it's typically at the command of a more powerful psychopomp or a deity of death who seeks to ease the passing of a mortal of singular importance, such as a high-ranking priest of a death goddess. In such instances, they serve as companions and ushers into the realm of the dead, not executioners. However, they are capable of serving in both capacities, especially if misguided mortals try to keep them from their duty, using their use of a deadly but painless kiss to end life in an instant. Katrinas always appear as festively dressed skeletons, usually in a woman's garb, but sometimes in colourful men's formal wear, and they're usually decorated with or carrying flowers. They do not have true genders, but an individual Katrina may have a more masculine or feminine voice and personality. They typically stand between 5 and 6 feet tall and only weigh about 20 to 30 pounds. Morigna. This beautiful woman wears a mask and is completely wrapped in spider silk. Magical fetishes adorn her clothing and her staff. Morignas are Purgatory's investigators, bounty hunters, and assassins, tracking down those who flout the natural cycle of death and judgment. Many Morignas prefer to assume the appearance of those who have died. They ensure the smooth operation of death's bureaucratic machine by eliminating complications, dedicating their existence to wiping out any forces that circumvent or corrupt the natural cycle of death and judgment. A Morigna uses spiders as her minions of death's silky embrace. She may set a trap for those who would subvert her power or guard a tomb of a particular favoured community. May all those wrapped in her silk cocoons forever find rest, and woe to those who would disturb them. They usually stand 7 to 8 feet tall and weigh 200 to 250 pounds. Yamaraja. The head of this winged dragon-like beast is crowned with long spines. Sooty feathers cover its body. Equal parts regal and horrifying to mortal sensibilities, Yamaraja preside as judges of death and dispensers of ultimate justice. Superstitions of the living call them by many names: the final judges, the grave magistrates, the dragon who eats men's souls. But all agree that these nobles of death wither even the stoutest of hearts. The grave magistrates glide with authority throughout purgatory, commanding flocks of lesser psychopomps, tolerating the ministration of devils and angels bickering for souls of note, and ordering the endless procession of petitioners. Many also serve as diplomats or military commanders to maintain purgatory's neutrality, but such a role is secondary to maintaining the flow of souls and the balance of the multiverse, though in theory each Yamaraja answers to the gods of death. In practice, each is unquestioned within their own courtroom. Yamarajas vaguely resemble black dragons, although they are easily distinguished once one realizes the gigantic creatures are cloaked in feathers rather than scales. Each Yamaraja measures at least 30 feet in length and weighs over 4 tons. Despite their massive size and largely sedentary duties, Yamarajas show astounding grace when they move. Impossibly old, Yamarajas are outsiders forged of lesser psychopomps or the souls of legendary mortals. As with other outsiders, they need not eat, drink, or sleep to survive, and the grave magistrates normally remain perched upon purgatory's ruins for months at a time, overseeing the smooth organization of their realm. Hard work wears at their immortal drive, and like living lords they are eagerly indulgent in exquisite banquets during their infrequent personal time. These bacchanals make for strange bedfellows among outsiders, as soulless and pit fiends may hobnob alongside one another, vying for the attention of the Yamaraja to help organize the release of judged souls and attempting to win future favors. When called into physical action, all Yamarajas can breathe raw decay in the form of clouds of carrion-eating insects, and their venom saps the youth and vitality from living creatures. Yamarajas serve as lower judges and lords of purgatory, directing the activities of other outsiders there, presiding over the dead, pre-sorting souls destined for ultimate judgment by death gods, and seeing to the efficiency and safety of the plane's infinite inhabitants. As the highest order of Psychopomps, they are simultaneously the most dedicated to their role as shepherds of the dead, and the most prone to impressing their own opinions in their work in the form of overturning precedents, rambling speeches, and extensive opinions attached to rulings. Such flexibility is necessary when making immortal decisions based on ever-changing actions of the living, which of course frustrates absolute outsiders to no end. Unsurprisingly, Yamarajas tend to vary greatly from one individual to the next. Most develop deep interests in worldly subjects that determine the sorts of mortals they will ultimately choose to watch over. A given Yamaraj might go out of its way to seek out artisans, followers of specific deities, or thieves, depending on its studies or whatever has come to its interest during that eon. Yamarajas might seek to guard such pet souls, ensuring their safe travel through purgatory, learning more about the soul as they journey together, and ultimately advocating that the death gods grant a more peaceful judgment. Others act in reverse, finding certain souls of mortals truly disgusting, tormenting their souls through their progression to the goddess's throne, and even suggesting that the spirit should face particularly monstrous damnations. How Yamaj reacts to an individual thus proves to be unpredictable, depending on its changeable tastes. Such idiosyncrasies vary between individual Yamarajas and might change over the course of centuries. Just as many Yamarajas become fascinated with souls possessing specific experiences or from certain backgrounds, some of the Psychopomps go out of their way to judge beings from specific worlds, collecting bits of information and insight with every creature that passes them by. Thus, some have become experts in one or multiple worlds, having spent eternities ferreting out the histories and secrets of worlds from first-hand accounts over millennia of inquiries. Many Yamarajas welcome the opportunity to share the details of their investigations, though they sometimes see inquiries into their worlds of expertise as opportunities to conscript new allies to aid the Psychopomps' cause. Standing at the pinnacle of their race, Yamarajas are well informed as to the challenges and goals of many subservient Psychopomps, and may only negotiate with mortals who perform a service in aid to their underlings. Check the description of this video to find some stat blocks for these unique monsters for your next 5th edition game.